The most catastrophic battles in human history are well known. The Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Midway, the Battle of Kursk. However, some of the most brutal battles in human history have been completely forgotten. So today we're going to take a look at top 7 most catastrophic battles in history you never knew about. Starting off this countdown at number 7, we have the Battle of Catastrophic. This battle was fought between the Imperial Austrian Army and the Kingdom of Hungary Army. It was fought on August 11, 1697, and it is considered one of the most catastrophic battles in European history because of how many people died during it. In fact, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, this is the deadliest single-day battle in history. A total of 24,000 soldiers were killed. The battle started when the Austrian army attacked the Hungarians in Catastrophic. They used cavalry charges to begin breaking through the Hungarian lines. But then the Austrian infantry arrived. They were ordered to hold their fire until the cavalry had broken through the Hungarian lines, but somehow they opened fire too early. The Austrian infantry volley tore into the Hungarian cavalry, killing many of them, but the worst part is that the Austrians kept on firing. That meant that the cavalry charge failed. And then the Hungarian infantry got involved. Soon the battlefield was complete chaos. Soldiers from both sides were fighting hand to hand, killing each other with swords and pikes. Neither side would back down. The battle lasted for hours. By the time it was over, thousands of soldiers lay dead on the ground. At No. 6, we have the Battle of Tannenberg. This battle was fought between Germany and Russia. It took place on August 30th, 1914. This was one of the first major battles of World War I at the time. Germany and Russia had a long-standing rivalry. This all the way back to the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. Tensions between the two countries had been high for years. When World War I broke out, Germany declared war on them. The Germans began their invasion of Belgium. The Russians saw this as a threat to their security. They decided to take action. They mobilized their army and began moving towards the border. On August, the Russian Second Army clashed with the German First Army at Tannenberg. The Germans were outnumbered 3-1, but they had better weapons and more experience. The Russians were forced to retreat, but they didn't get far. The Germans pursued them. They slaughtered the Russians. Over 30,000 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded. It was one of the greatest victories in German military history. It showed the world that Germany was a major power in World War I. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps us out. And if you enjoy this video, then please consider liking it. It will help push this video to more people and keep this series going. Thank you guys so much. Now back to the video. At No. 5, we have the Battle of Catastrophic. This battle was fought between the Roman Empire and the Goths. It took place in the year 378 AD. It was one of the most catastrophic defeats in the history of the Roman Empire. In fact, some historians believe that it marked the end of the Western Roman Empire. In the late 4th century, the Goths were a powerful tribe. They lived in what is now Romania and Bulgaria. The Romans were worried about their power. They wanted to bring them under control. In 376 AD, the Goths asked the Romans for permission to settle in the Balkans. The Romans agreed, but they made a big mistake. They placed the Goths along the border of the empire. This meant that the Goths were exposed to the Roman way of life. They were influenced by Roman culture. Many of them converted to Christianity, but not all Goths were happy with this arrangement. Many of them wanted to return to their traditional way of life. They felt that the Romans were oppressing them. In 378 AD, the Gothic king Fritigern led his people in a revolt against the Romans. The Romans were caught off guard. They were defeated. In fact, according to some sources, 20,000 Roman soldiers were killed. This was a devastating blow to the Roman Empire. It showed that Rome was no longer the invincible power it once was. It also showed that the Gothic people should not be underestimated. At No. 4, we have the Battle of Cannae. This battle was fought between Rome and Carthage. It took place in the year 216 BC. It is considered one of the greatest battles in ancient history. The Battle of Cannae was fought during the Second Punic War. This war was between Rome and Carthage. It was one of the most intense conflicts in ancient history. Both sides were willing to do anything to win. The Carthaginians were led by Hannibal Barca. He was one of the greatest generals in history. Hannibal was known for his brilliant tactics and his ability to inspire his troops. He led his army across the Alps and into Italy. He won several major battles against the Romans, but none of them were more impressive than his victory at Cannae. Hannibal set up an ambush for the Romans. He lured them into a narrow valley. There he surrounded them on all sides. The Romans were trapped. They were slaughtered. According to some sources, 80% of the Roman army was killed. The Battle of Cannae was a turning point in the Second Punic War. It showed that Carthage was a force to be reckoned with. It also showed that Rome was vulnerable. At number 3, we have the Battle of Gaugamela. This battle was fought between the armies of Alexander the Great and the armies of the Persian Empire. It took place on October 1st, 331 B.C. It is considered one of the most important battles in ancient history because it marked the end of the Achaemenid Empire. Alexander the Great was the king of the Kingdom of Macedon. He was one of the most famous rulers in history. Alexander was known for his military genius and his ambition. He conquered much of the known world. But his greatest victory came at the Battle of Gaugamela. Alexander the Great and his army marched into Persia. He defeated the Persians at the Battle of Issus. But the Persian king, Darius III, refused to give up. He assembled a new army and met Alexander at Gaugamela. The two armies clashed. The battle was fierce. But in the end, Alexander's forces prevailed. Darius III was killed. His empire was over. At No. 2, we have the Battle of Stalingrad. This battle was fought between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. It took place from August 23, 1942 to February 2, 1943. It is considered one of the most important battles in World War II. The Battle of Stalingrad was a turning point in World War II. It marked the end of the German advance in the Soviet Union in 1941. The Germans invaded the Soviet Union. They quickly made significant gains. But as the winter months approached, the Germans began to suffer. The cold weather made it difficult to continue fighting, but the Germans pressed on. They captured the city of Stalingrad. But they did not realize that the Soviets would not give up easily. The Soviets launched a counterattack. They pushed the Germans back. The battle was one of the most intense and brutal in history. It lasted for 6 months. In the end, the Germans were defeated. And finally, at number 1, we have the Battle of Verdun. This battle was fought between France and Germany. It took place from February to December 1916. It is considered one of the most brutal battles in World War I. The Battle of Verdun was part of the wider war on the Western Front. The Germans wanted to break through the French lines and end the war quickly. But the French were determined to defend their country. They fought back. The battle was one of the longest and most intense of the war. It lasted for 10 months. The French suffered heavy casualties, but they held their ground. The Battle of Verdun is remembered as a symbol of French resistance during World War I. Well, that's all for this video. What do you think? Did we miss any catastrophic battles in history that you think should have been included? If so, then let us know about them in the comments section down below. Everyone, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to go ahead and like it. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. See you next time.